G'day, Marty Ware here from youtube.com/Marty's Garden. Got a great show for you today. It's all about planting your veggie garden out after you've prepared your beds and everything. So yeah, come and watch the show. You're going to learn heaps in the inside there. We'll see you in there, eh? When planting out the garden, there are some points that need to be considered. You need to consider the types of plants. Are they suitable to the region? And are you planting them in the correct season? This way, you're going to get the best optimal growth and not get a whole lot of plants die off and just get saddened by your first start and give up on your project. You also need to consider your spacing. How far apart do you need each plant, and will certain plants grow too high and shade others, etc. How much food do you want to grow? So consider how much food you're going to need for your family, like how many tomato plants, maybe 3 to 5 tomato plants for a small family, depending if you don't eat a lot of tomatoes. If you do eat a lot of tomatoes, you may need to grow at least 7 tomato plants, or a mixture of tomato plants and cherry tomatoes, things like that. Now, are the plants annuals? If they are, how often will you need to replace them? And will you companion plant? That means plant other plants that they're friends with to keep away pests and diseases, etc. Like the tomato with the basil, and throw in some parsley to the side because that's another companion as well. Are you going to plant in rows? If so, how are you going to construct the garden and then go in and plant out? You may need to provide stakes. So some plants like beans and peas and tomatoes and things will need some type of support. So consider putting in the supports before you plant them out. When planting out the garden, it is also highly recommended that you plant out only the best and strongest seedlings that you have raised or bought from the local nursery. This way you don't have to worry about any sick little plants that may die off in the future, and then you're going to collect the strongest and healthiest seed from these plants as they grow and mature. This part of the garden is my no-dig vegetable garden. So all I've done is I've laid some cardboard, some newspaper, and covered it with mulch. Well, here I've used organic sugar cane. I've mixed it with cow manure, chook manure, which I got from my friend at his little chook shed, and I've just been throwing in some 5-in-1 pellets, which are a mixture of seaweed and manures and things as well. Also, I've thrown in some rock dust from the worm farm guy that I got, who made up the compost, rock dust and worm castings mix for me. And this bed now is about a month old now. This is still winter here in northern New South Wales where I am, and it's a fairly protected little spot, so I'm not doing too bad. I've got some shallots planted over here, which I actually bought just straight from the shop. They had no dirt on the roots whatsoever, so I just cut them back and replanted them, and look, you can see new growth starting to come through now. So I'm going to have my own shallots. So yeah, I double harvested those, got to eat them and plant them again. I've got some zucchini growing at the back here, some flat leaf parsley, some artichokes. There's lots of tomatoes throughout the garden. There's some chocos growing on the back fence. Yeah, I'll just tell you a little bit about this garden. Basically, when preparing it, all I do is just pull aside the mulch and then just get the hole, fill the hole with some potting mix, good quality organic potting mix, put some cow manure around the outside and just plonk the plant straight in. There are a couple of things you need to do when you're planting out the garden. Firstly, you need to check if your pot's root bound. If it is, when you pull the plant out, just tease the roots up a bit so they're all nice and free before you plant them in. If you've got a long big taproot like you would for a tomato on a big plant, make sure you plant the root down nice and straight. If you come across any plants that have got curled up roots, then just discard of them because they're not going to grow as well. You always want to have a nice, long, straight, healthy root to get the most optimum growth. When you plant it out, also you may want to soak it in some seaweed solution first, and then over time go in and plant it out into the garden, and then either hit it with some more seaweed solution as you plant it in, and if you're lucky to have some compost tea around or some worm casting tea, then wormweed, then also water that in as you plant the plants. And don't forget to keep watering these guys until they're settled in and they've got some good roots into the ground. This here is the Dig vegetable garden. So I've actually dug it up and mixed in the mixture that I got from the worm farmer, which was the rock dust, the compost and the worm castings, and then I've sprayed it with a type of wormweed or worm tea which increases the microbial activity. And I only planted this guy about 5 days ago, this tomato here, and I didn't get any wilt whatsoever. So it'll be interesting to see what type of growth I get out of this garden bed. I've got a couple of tomatoes in here at the front here growing with marigolds to keep the root nematode down, because marigolds are great for keeping away that root nematode that attack tomatoes. I've also got to plant out some basil in here, so when I plant the basil I'll just be coming and making a hole just like this, and you can see that the soil down here is nice and wet, it's got the mixture through it. I'm just going to dig it up a little bit and just put it straight in. I'm not into big massive digging anymore. I want the microbes to settle and form around the roots once the new plants go in here. So after thinking for a little bit about after reconstructing this brand new vegetable garden, and I'm just planting it out at the moment. I'm only planting it out sporadically because, well, being a full-time single dad, it's a lot of work, and I only get moments of time to come and film, show you guys, you know, prepare the garden, look into doing future shows and that. So I'm fairly busy, but you know, I do really think about how I'm going to plant out before I actually get down and do it. So I'm not really a person that likes to dig too much. I like the worms and everything to get in there and do the job, but because this is such a new garden and it's never had any type of organic matter thrown in here, you know, it probably really is a good idea to do the first dig and then throw in your compost and, you know, your worm castings and get the garden going. So I probably should have started maybe a little bit earlier and yeah, just started building up the microbial activity before I started planting it out. But look, it's already going ahead quite well. I've got some compost tea brewing upstairs as we speak, and I'm going to be down here at 2 o'clock once this gets shaded, this area here, and I'm going to be just covering this whole area with compost tea that I've made myself, and it's just going to be a massive microbe boost, and then I can come down and plant more. So the plants that are already here are going to love it, and when the new plants come they're going to love it even more, because there's going to be so much activity in here and so much life force that it's just going to do wonders, and you're going to be quite surprised at the results as the show goes on. So stay tuned. But anyway, look, we've got more in this show coming up about getting your garden ready and established, so just hang on, and watch the rest. You're probably wondering why I'm looking at this big bin of water. Well, you know, I've made some boo-boos with the mycological activity here, well, what I call soil biodiversity, or the soil web. And I've been coming in here and I've been watering the garden with the town water, and unfortunately the town water has a lot of chlorine in it, and I've been killing off the microbes as I've been going. So what I'm doing is I'm removing the chlorine now, and I'm going to hand water. It takes over 24 hours for this water, all the chlorine to come out of here. It'll just be sapped out by the sun and the air around it, and then I can water with this. Yeah, with this thing I can make up liquid manures and things like that, but I'm going to actually hand water the rest of the garden from this bin, and this bin cost me $25 from the local shop.
There's my makeshift compost, which I got the leaves from the local school. I bought a big bag of horse manure, and there's some worm castings here on the side here that come out of my last collection, and I wanted whatever worms are in there to go into that compost, and then I'll come and grab this bit of compost here and I'll use it when I'm doing my planting. Over the back here I've got a passion fruit just starting to grow. I've put some sweet basil in here. They've been eaten a little bit by some bugs, but I don't really care. And I moved some of these zucchinis because they weren't doing so good in the other garden. So we'll see how they go. If they don't take off, they'll be coming out of the garden. So basically I've just dug this up, mixed the worm casting mix through with the rock dust and the compost, which are all in one bag, and covered it, wet it all down, and then covered it with sugarcane mulch. This little tomato come out of the compost, and I moved him over here to next to the fence post here because I want to grow him up the fence post and tie him back to that so I don't have to have stakes. But you'll find that when you're using compost, you'll get lots of little plants come up all around the place. So if you're not using, if you don't care about planting heirloom plants out and things, then yeah, you can save a lot of money and you can get some great plants, because if they self-sow, there's no stress and no removal of it. So basically no root shock, and they'll just settle into their spot so easily. This tomato was only put in about 5 days ago, and basically what I've done is because I've already dug this garden up, and then I've come along a couple of days later and I've dug a hole into the pre-dug material and planted the tomato. But at the same time I have also gone in and used the worm tea to kick off the microbes, and there's been no chlorine on this garden, no chlorine water at all from the local hose on this garden now. So these microbes are going to be building up in here, and this afternoon I'm down here with the worm tea that I've been brewing up at home in the apartment to go right over this whole vegetable garden. Alright, I'm in the apartment now, and you can hear that noise bubbling, bubble, 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 bubble. Guess what? Well, when I'm planting out, I use compost tea. Yeah, I brew it myself. And who said you can't brew it in an apartment and use it in an apartment gardening? I sure do. And I'm going to show it to you right now. I'm on the webcam here, flip cam, so I'm going to flip it over. It's going to go wonky for a second, and we're going to show you my compost brewer. It's really cheap to make and quite easy, and it's not smelly whatsoever. I'm going to tell you more about it. Just hold on while I flip this over, and we're going to bring it in now. Now I'm in my laundry here, and I've got it sitting up on the hot water tank. The pump here, this is just a $25, $23 dual outlet pump here. It's got 2 little dual outlets and 2 little air hose rocks on the end, and it runs by power. I've got a little bag here full of worm castings, the compost, and the rock dust. It's the same one I put in the garden, and I've been running this now for nearly 2 days. It needs lots of oxygen, because what we're doing is we're putting the compost into the bag, then we're filling it, then we're feeding it with molasses, so an unsulfured molasses, and make sure it's unsulfured because it will kill the bacteria. And what we're doing is we're building the microbes up in here with lots and lots of oxygen. Now it's just starting to get a lot of bubbles on top, so it's starting to get a little bit of a head. I probably should maybe let it go a bit longer, but I think by the next few hours there'll be like thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of microbes in here anyway. If I let it run for another day, I'd probably have more, but it's going to be enough for me. So yeah, the only problem is it's probably that pump maybe be a little bit noisy, just zzz, you know. But other than that, there's no smell because it's aerobic. It hasn't gone anaerobic. So if it was an anaerobic, it would be smelly and horrible, and you wouldn't use it anyway. So what you want to do is, once that's ready, plant your garden out straight away, and then after you plant your garden, pour this straight on top. Yep, this stuff is liquid gold. Believe me, it's just going to give it a micro boost. It's going to save all the root shock, and the growth rate that you're going to get is going to be phenomenal. This type of planting that you can see here is, well, I haven't really gone to the companions too much, but what I've done is I haven't created rows or anything, and so what I want to do is create more of a natural style garden, so the pests, the bugs and things, they get sort of distracted by all the different smells and they can't catch on to one scent. Say for example, if I had all these tomatoes in a row running down, then they would pick up on the scent of the smell of the tomatoes and jump onto one tomato and then jump from one tomato to the next. So a good idea is actually, we haven't done it here, but I will be in the other rows, is plant a basil plant in between each one of the tomatoes, a sweet basil, just to kill down the scent, and also it's a companion for the tomatoes. So there you have it, guys. A show all about getting and planting your vegetable garden out at your place. I hope that you've got some great tips out of this and that you will put it into work. Now, please keep an eye on this show because it's a part of a series about the vegetable garden that I'm growing here at home, starting in the winter and going through the summer, going at the back of the apartments where I live, using some land that the estate agents have given to me freely, and are glad to work with me with it. And so, look, for a 1 month old garden, it's doing pretty good, and I'm hoping that you'll get the same results by following the show and learning as you go along. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please click the subscribe button above and send the video off to your friends so they can watch too, and leave a comment down below if you've got anything to say or anything to add, or just a question that you'd like to ask. Alright, I'm Marty Ware from youtube.com/Marty's Garden, and we'll see you at the next video. Bye.